Deadly Tarantula Girl coming to you from my inside office. I'm here today with the creator of Morph Markets, Mr. John Lehmann. Okay. All right, there was an echo there from just a minute. Alrighty, so for those of you who do not yet know what Morph Market is, wow, oh my gosh, I'm super tongue-tied today. For those of you who do not yet know what Morph Market is the place to go for reptile shopping these days. It had started primarily with ball pythons, I do believe, and now is expanding. So, welcome, John. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Wonderful. So I came to learn about Morph Market probably within the last year. And it's just totally blown up. It has been insane. You must be super excited about everything that's going on. Tell us a little bit about the birth of Morph Market. How did this whole thing come to be?
Well, I guess I started working on it 4.5 years ago at this point. And the creation was sort of motivated out of my experience of going online and trying to find reptiles. Well, I started with ball pythons like many others. And I had gotten one pet ball python for my kids. And as I'm sure many of the viewers can relate, one leads to more. And pretty soon you're building racks and incubators, and we did a little breeding. But through that process, I quickly found out that I didn't feel like there was a good way online to really find specific animals that I was interested in, which was frustrating because I knew they were out there. But if I wanted an animal with a certain set of genes, you feel like in 2015 you should be able to do that pretty easily, right? But it wasn't that easy because what was available were either reptile forums or classified sites that were basically forum software, lightly customized, from the 90s, or you have Facebook, which is great for what it's good for, but it's not specific to commerce. I mean, they have their marketplace now, but it's not going to even let you do reptiles there. So that was the motivation, and and so honestly, I actually started because I was playing around with some ideas that I had. I was trying to predict or understand the prices of the different morphs. And to do that, I needed data. And so I started to get different, look at different websites and gather data. And then that's when the idea came to me that, well, I could build a whole marketplace to solve this problem that I'm experiencing as a hobbyist.
Yeah, that is so true that, I think that Facebook groups are fantastic for people who just kind of want to have discussions and stuff. Mm-hmm. But what is challenging is that there are so many Facebook groups that to try and sell on a Facebook group, it almost seems anti-productive. And I'm not discouraging anybody from selling on Facebook. If it's working for you, that's fabulous. However, the ball python market specifically is so incredibly diverse. If you're looking for something specific, as most people are like, oh, I just saw, I don't know, a video with Justin Kabelka or Brian Barczyk. They see something they're interested in. They want to find that for themselves. Just finding that in the world is, wow. I mean, pretty much an impossibility. So for you to kind of unite all different businesses that can conglomerate all of their merchandise into one area, and for you to make it searchable, that is so incredible that you were able to do that.
Well, we're really happy with the positive feedback we get and impact it's made, and yeah, we're just glad that it's I guess accomplished the goals that we set out, and we can always try to make it better. The site wouldn't be what it is without our users who have encouraged us and encouraging emails over the years. People send emails to websites, they don't know who's going to read. Well, Morph is a small company, so when you send an email, I'm going to read it. Mm-hmm. And I always appreciate the encouragement. We get a lot of it. but also feedback on features. You know, over the years, you know, we will send out a survey from time to time to certain segments of our audience to get specific feedback about features and things. But in general, we have a long list of things. We have 100 things or more, you know, that we'd like to do right now. It just takes time to roll out those new features, but we're always listening to the feedback from users to understand where the pain points are on the site, or what ideas that we don't have there that could be useful. And we put all those feedback into, we tally them as votes within our software to kind of rank features and help us do project planning. So really are grateful to the whole community for coming behind it, because if people didn't choose to use it, then it wouldn't be useful, right? We had to produce something useful enough, and then we had to sell the vision to people and get the sellers and the buyers and get them to come. And now there's momentum. That's the hardest thing, I think. But we're excited as we see that, like you said, progress from ball pythons into the other areas of reptiles too.
Yeah, no, that's been absolutely amazing. So I am not tech savvy at all, and so I just kind of consider you an amazing genius tech savant. I don't know. I mean, what the idea that you had and then brought to fruition to me was kind of a beautiful hybrid of common sense, duh, we need this, but then making that come into existence was ingenious. So you are, people may not know, newer to reptiles. And so I think that gave you a very unique insight into what a user would be looking for. And so I think that's really interesting. So tell us a little bit about your history with reptiles and kind of what got you interested and started and when.
Sure. So, I would say as a kid, I think my story is probably common. And so I won't share all the details that are probably similar to many of us. But of course, as a kid, I loved critters. I loved animals. I love the outdoors, and so collecting, things that I caught is part of that. And when I was probably in high school, I had some friends that had snakes, and I thought those were really neat. And I through one of their contacts bought from some guy. I bought a wild caught reticular python.
Wow.
Named Trent, right? And so I was obviously not a very educated reptile, hobbyist at that point, because that was not a good choice. And this animal was pretty feisty, and it eventually got out of the cage that I had made, not very well really, and hid in the wall for a few days until
oh my gosh,
my parents and I found it, and they were totally freaked out. They're like, "The animal's gonna die, it's gonna smell and all that, so you gotta get rid of it." So I had to rehome the animal. But later I learned, not long after that, I went to an expo, and I was like, oh wow, there's all kinds of great captive bred animals that are perfect for pets, for a beginner like I was. So that was like as a kid, but I wasn't at that point allowed to have reptiles at home anymore.
Yeah.
But then you fast forward, and I had my kids of my own, probably 6 years ago, and saw them, and we were at an alligator farm, and they were enjoying some of the reptiles, and I was like, oh, I can get reptiles again now. So we went to an expo, picked up a ball python, and that's kind of where it started. The collecting, and that accelerated till I had racks and incubators and rooms full.
You caught the bug.
Of the bug, and then it was at the same time I was, as I mentioned, I was experiencing the online industry with fresh eyes. And that is really a valuable thing. And there's nothing. There may be features. Some things are, maybe some good ideas there, but generally, you didn't have to be Einstein to see, to be familiar with how the web works with large, valuable companies like Facebook and other sites that you're used to that just work pretty nicely. And Facebook may not be your favorite example, but they're just smooth and easy to use, right? So we're all familiar with that. And I have a software background, so put those together, and I saw my ability to fill that need. But we and that's why we appreciate today, like when new people are new to our site. A lot of times they're just not. Anytime that someone has a problem, it's like even if they didn't know how to do that function on Morph Market, that's still partly our fault because in a sense we made it too hard for them. So we're always looking to see what was hard for them, even if the answer is there. But we appreciate people that come with fresh eyes and look at our site because you never. Amazon talks about, I think Jeff Bezos talks about day zero. Like they always want to be acting like they were in the very beginning because big companies, not that we're big, but get old and lazy and slow, and eventually some other technology comes and replaces them. So we want to stay young and agile and always be thinking about having that same hunger that we had in the beginning that maybe led us to create it.
Yeah, that's obviously kind of like when you fall in love with that person, don't forget that that rush of endorphins that you first had. Don't ever stop working hard for what it is that you want. That's a very, very good mindset to have. So it kind of brings me to the next thing. So you come from, I don't know how to describe it, and I don't know exactly, like an engineering or a tech background, which made you the perfect guy to start all this. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I went to, I guess I was writing computer programming. I got introduced to a computer, so to date myself a little bit, I'm 40. I got introduced to a personal computer when I was in elementary school, an Apple II, which people around my age might remember those. So in elementary school, started writing some programs, and then by 6th grade, I had my own personal computer, which for the young kids out there, that's like, what? You've had a phone,
right?
You've had a computer in your pocket since you're in 5th grade or something, but it was new back then, and so I started that, and then by college, I got 2 degrees in computer science, and I went into work for a R&D company that does natural language processing. So it's like an area of artificial intelligence that processes text to understand it. An example would be like voice recognition on your phone. That'd be the kind of thing. Except we didn't do voice, we did text. So did that for a while, worked as a software consultant for a while. I went to a legal software company, startup company that got acquired. So worked at different software companies, did websites, did mobile software, did all the different things. And I guess all that did help to prepare me for being able to build Morph Market. But, it's, as the saying goes, it's 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration.
Yes.
I never knew it would take years and years to get to build what we have. My vision was never that big in the beginning. It was a lot simpler. But as I continued, I saw the need for more and more complexity and features, and so the size of it grew, but so did the amount of effort and time that would need to go into resources that would need to go into it. So I didn't expect in the beginning. I thought it'd be a 6 to 12 month project, and
wow,
4 years later, it's still putting a lot of time into it.
Right. So that I was actually wondering. So if you are professionally full-time, if you're just managing Morph Market, or is this still something that you're having to do on your off hours, or do you have employees doing it? Are you the moderator? Tell us a little bit about that stuff.
So I do have, I do other work as well, but I work from home, so I'm very, it's very flexible. And so it can vary. I've, sometimes I'm putting in full-time into Morph Market, other times I'm, part-time. So it just kind of varies depending on what other jobs I'm working on. But yeah, being able to work from home has been really good and have had that flexibility. So yeah, it kind of varies. And as far as, it's not, I have some other people that I work with. I'm primarily the one putting the hours in, but I do have some support people as well that help me with some of the emails. But ultimately, I like that stuff to be, that's one of the things that I plan to work on this year is to streamline some of the aspects of the site that do involve interaction with humans, like admins like us. And part of that is like, for example, a better help system, right? There's common questions that we get, and we try to address those and answer them. And that's better both for us, but it's also better for our users because if they contact us, we work hard to get responses within 24 hours. That's our goal, but that's 24 hours. And if they can get the answer in 5 minutes, immediately, then that's better. So that's an example of something that's not super sexy or creative, but that's something the site would benefit from that.
I think it is sexy, John. I think it's super sexy. When you need help for somebody to be like, at your service, that's hot.
We do what we can.
So Morph Market has turned out to be something absolutely incredible. I think it has already become the young Amazon of the reptile market. So starting off, it was ball pythons. What have you expanded into at this time, and what do you plan to expand to?
Actually, I have to go to the website to see now. There's so many species on the site. Last year, I think in the first, I think it was like a year after it was like 9 months after we had launched ball pythons publicly that I think we had boa constrictors, and then it was leopard geckos, and on down the list. You can actually go to the homepage and see all the thumbnails of the different categories, the top level categories we have, which sometimes correspond to species or sometimes groups of species, geckos and everything. So last year was really actually near I think it was in the fall. It was really exciting. We added the last groups of species to complete reptiles. So that would obviously been a goal from the beginning, was to get complete coverage on reptiles. But we do want to add, amphibians and invertebrates as well.
Oh, cool.
In the future. So there's no reason not to. Those things, the kind of things you see at a pet show, at an expo,
right.
Kind of animals that go together. But so we definitely plan to add those at some point. I don't have specific dates on that, but we don't get as much feedback or requests for those areas. We do occasionally, but the part that's it's not there, so people don't come too. So if you build it,
so one thing that I heard you tell someone else, it might have been Sean Bradley, is that basically, if you are a business owner, and like, let's say, for example, I'm super into, I don't know if you have like Leachianus on your on Morph Market yet, but I'm a major lychee breeder that I can basically apply to open a storefront or profile or whatever you call it, and to basically start posting ads. And that once you have 200 like ads, I'm assuming of the same species, that then you'll open that department per se. So tell people a little bit about that for our animal breeders.
Okay. Well, yeah, as far as becoming, as far as becoming a breeder on the site, it's relatively simple for anyone. People sometimes don't understand. They think, well, I'm not a company or I'm not a business, so I cannot be on Morph Market. Can I be on there and sell? It's like, no, of course, anybody can sell on Morph Market without having any kind of officially registered business. But that process shouldn't take someone more than 10 minutes to sign up. For their seller's account, we do require sellers provide identity to get their store approved before their ads go live. That's a policy we introduced a couple of years ago, just to have better security, honestly, around sellers, and we don't require that for buyers, but with sellers, we need to see identity so that we know who you are, and that way, in the small percentage of cases where sellers are not good sellers or they cause problems, we're able to deal with that and not have them pop up under other usernames as well. So we have different things in place to kind of control that. I don't know if that's kind of getting off on a tangent, but
yeah, no,
it's easy to get set up, and and then it list ads under any category subcategory that we have. As far as the number, what you described is basically true. So if you go again to our site and you look at the categories or the thumbnails on the front page, which basically are the major categories, there's, I don't know, 15 or 20, close to 20 different major top level categories. And so like lychees, for example, are under other geckos because we have top level category for leopard geckos and crested geckos. But with other geckos right now, we have a couple hundred ads for other geckos combined, right? So we didn't want to put a top level lychee category in the beginning because we have 14 ads of lychees right now. So it would just be not very full. And so we put all the other geckos into their own category. But that is like you described, as those subcategories become popular and trafficked, then we can promote them to top level categories. And at that point, the fun thing is then we add in all the genetics for that species, which allows for the really cool searching and browsing that makes the site useful.
So that was another question I have. The title of the website is morphmarket.com, but are there any regulations or rules? Do you guys frown upon people posting normals? Just like if people have normal ball pythons or normal geckos, is that against your policy or anything?
No, not at all. I mean, normals are beautiful, right? They're maybe more common and we're used to them, right? But I mean, it's beautiful nature, so no prejudice against normals at all.
Awesome. So tell me where you came up with the name, because it is a great name, Morph Market.
Well, the funny thing, I mentioned a few minutes ago how initially I was messing around with pricing in the ball python market. So the original code name of the project was ball price, kind of like being in the ball price. I wasn't like ready to go public with that name or anything. But anyway, then the whole thing pivoted right into an actual marketplace. So, I mean, I can't, as far I brainstormed a lot of ideas, and that's I guess what stuck in terms of seemed like a good label for being memorable and communicating the signal of what the site's about. And a lot of people do use. I know people that use the site not even to buy and sell; they just come to look at the prices to set their prices. So
I do.
I've heard that so many times that I know that the site provides a valuable and a really appreciated function within the community just for that purpose alone.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, so I have used it, and I actually just opened a storefront, and I'm going to start using Morph Market now that I discovered that you have a market for reticulated pythons. So that's awesome. I love ball pythons. I breed ball pythons. I'm not huge. That's definitely not my primary area. So I'll be posting more ball pythons as they're available. But I just don't usually have an excess. We're in a very remote area, and so it's not so easy to ship animals out. And so I sell locally or a lot of times at expos, and it's just so much easier for me just to hand the animal across the table. But as I'm sure you know, reticulated pythons are very much a specialty animal. And so those are going to have to go to homes all around the countries that are highly individualized and prepared to take care of a huge snake. And that's not, you really have to kind of like, that's kind of a matchmaking service. I mean, it really, you need that website to help you get there. But I got off on a tangent. So what I've used Morph Market more for it up until this point is to, number one, look at and for morphs. So if I see something, obviously I watch YouTube, you might imagine. I discovered watching YouTube to learn about anything in the world sometime back. And of course, that's when we decided to start our channel, which I think this is our 7th year or something of creating and publishing videos. But so if there is a morph or a gene that I hear about or see that's interesting, I'm going to look on Morph Market to kind of see variations of that. And also to get kind of a price point of, if I want to buy this animal, what kind of price ranges I'm looking at, or if I were going to sell it. So let's say I have the genes to make that animal, I want to know what kind of value that it has. And I love that as a breeder, as a consumer, as even just a fan of ball pythons or other species, I can look and it sort of levels the playing field, because with all these different websites and all these different groups, the reptile market is kind of unusual in that people would name their price, and oftentimes people would buy it because you didn't really have, there was not a Walmart or a Target where you could go and look at all the products and kind of price check them. Or you could, but it was a huge, vast research project. And unless you already kind of had a lot of prior background knowledge on, okay, I need to check Bob Clark and Ozzy and Sean Bradley. Like if you already kind of have a strong idea, you probably already know where you're sitting. But otherwise, and then also too, it brings all of these smaller breeders it just puts them right up there in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And so I live in Roswell, New Mexico, which is a very remote area in the middle of nowhere, which I like for the most part, but it isolates you. We have one amazing ball python breeder, and his name is Mike Holt, and he's the owner of Crash Site Reptiles.
Mm-hmm.
And he started telling us all about Morph Market this, Morph Market that, blah, blah, blah. And he's amazing. I go to his place regularly. We hang out. He comes over here, I go over there. And so I personally have seen his place. It is spotless. His animals are top notch. All of his bloodlines are highly desirable. He has beautiful animals. And he puts shipping in with his prices. I mean, I would do business with him any day of the week and recommend him to anyone. I do know he had one experience where he had a customer who asked him, hey, I really like this snake. Will you hold it for me? And at the time, he didn't have any other buyers. So he said, yeah, I'll hold it. You know, he said, when are you going to buy it? The guy said, in a week on the 1st or whatever day it was. It was about a week. He said, sure, no problem. He doesn't hear anything back from that guy. 2 weeks passes. He has a buyer interested, tries to contact the man, no response. And since it had gone past their agreed time, and since the buyer was not responding to his inquisition, he chose to go ahead after a little more time and sell the snake.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the next day, the guy comes back and he says, okay, I have my money, I'm ready. And so Mike told him, you know, I waited for you. I tried to contact you. We went well, you know, twice past the time that we agreed. And that buyer just blew up and said, oh, you sold it out from under me, whatever. And started leaving him all kinds of bad reviews. So I was wondering what kind of like moderation you have for that. Number one, obviously, if you're seeing a lot of negative feedback against the store, how you handle that. And I know this is a really broad question, but also too, if you have kind of a nitpicky buyer that you're maybe seeing a trend, is there any regulation or do you moderate that in any way?
Those are great questions. And I had so many things I wanted to say through to different points there. But I remember this specific situation with Mike. And it's not that uncommon. I mean, it's uncommon, I think, in terms of percentages of transactions that are happening. But from our point of view, you know, there's something. Well, sometimes there's like 2 in a week, and sometimes it's quiet for a while. You know, but we definitely get that is the hardest part and the least desirable part of my job is to have to kind of like step into these situations. And you know, I think Mike is a more experienced breeder, and so he had set more explicit guidelines around that transaction and had his store policies. But the worst is when you have newer breeders who aren't, you know, they're maybe more naive, and they aren't kind of aware of these kind of problems that can crop up, and so they don't have their, you know, you go to their store policy page and there's almost nothing there, you know, and they didn't discuss these terms with the. This happened last week, I think, where someone was upset because an animal wasn't held for them. You know, and actually, he said, "Hey, they're talking about the price." He's like, "Well, I'll honor that price today." And then the buyer came back and was like, "Okay, I want to buy it." And then by the time he got back to them, it was sold. And so the buyer was irate because he thought he was about to buy the animal for that price, but the seller didn't say, didn't promise to hold the animal for him. He didn't have the money. And it's very. And so it's tough because we understand both sides of it. We understand especially if you're new and you don't know how this works. And this is not like buying a shrink wrap package of diapers off Amazon.com, right? These are live animals that you have to, you know, be considerate about the animal and the weather and all. There's so many factors involved. So it's just a lot more complicated. And when people buy, a lot of times those buyers come and they express interest, right? And then they never follow through.
Right,
so
of course.
Trying to protect themselves, you know, and generally sellers won't hold animals, and I wouldn't encourage sellers to hold animals until they have some money in hand, a deposit, right?
Exactly.
But that's the advice that I give. So we do what we can to, you know, one thing we do is we try to educate buyers and sellers, and so we have, you know, on our front page there's a button, how to buy, and there we walk people through the whole process of like what it looks like to purchase a Morph Market. And then even from that document, there's links that go to other documents. Like there's one on what buyers can expect, which kind of sets the industry norm. I mean, it just describes here's how it usually works. And so don't be super surprised if you didn't give them money yet and the animal's not held for you.
Right.
We do what we can to diffuse that by educating, but the reality is everybody doesn't go and read all those documents. Some people do probably, but after they have a situation like this, we try to kindly point them to those documents. But yeah, these kind of things happen, and as far as generally we try to leave the market to be free and open. Right? There's so much going on. We can't regulate it all. We shouldn't regulate it.
Right.
In so many ways, right? In fact, in our site and How to Buy It talks about, we're not responsible. We don't broker the transactions, so we're not even involved in that.
Right.
For better or worse. But that being said, even though we don't take responsibility, so if someone gets ripped off, we're not going to pay for that. However, we do our best to rid the marketplace of any kind of scammer, dishonesty and scammers. So if there's outright, and that does happen occasionally, and we deal with that. So that's where we really focus our efforts, is making sure every now and then someone will get on there and just rip pictures off the internet for animals they don't have and just try to get money, and we can generally shut that down pretty fast. We have a number of techniques, automatic as well as our user base, who will flag those they'll flag these sellers within a day, and we'll have them down. And we try to educate our buyers, be really careful buying from a seller who's brand new. They've only been on there, less than a week or 2 weeks. That's when these kind of things tend to happen. So then of course I can talk more about it in separately, but we just rolled out a rating system, and so the point of that is to let sellers accumulate, obviously reputation feedback that would give future buyers confidence. But yeah, as far as we try to empathize with the buyers who maybe don't understand it's usually the buyer that doesn't exactly understand how things work. Try to empathize with them as well as educate them about that. It's interesting. Running a marketplace is just different than so many other kind of websites and services because it's a two-sided market, right? So we care about both sides. The sellers are really our customers, but the buyers are the seller's customer, and they will bring value to the site. So we try to make everyone happy. We really encourage sellers to be explicit in their terms and their policies, so that they can point back to that. We have, before any user, this is an example of a feature that was added over time from feedback from users. Before, the sellers really wanted the buyers to make sure they've read their policies. So to even inquire on an animal on an ad, you have to check a box that says, I've read this seller's policies, which are actually on that page at the bottom. I know kind of what I'm entering into to try to avoid those misunderstandings. Now, another idea that I've had, something I would like to do, is to add almost, there's LegalZoom and websites that help you kind of create templates for you to, they give you they sort of templatize the building of these documents, right? Legal documents or whatever. So I'd love to have on our site a template that kind of hits on the major issues that a seller would want to state in their policy, and then they can fill it in with their parameters. Maybe they only provide a guarantee of a live arrival, or maybe they give a week or whatever. They can just customize that the way they want to, but it would kind of encourage them to hit on all those points that they would want to define. So
interesting.
But yeah, it is, after that, sellers definitely have one of these experiences, and they learn, they iterate on their policy a little bit and make it more clear. But, I think, we try to, again, educate the buyers before and then after, and sellers. And, we generally don't regulate unless there's scamming going on, or if we have people sending abusive messages. Every now and then you'll get somebody on there, and a buyer maybe will be having a bad day or something, and they'll, see some animal, and they'll send a message that says, I would never pay that. That animal's not worth that much money, that kind of thing, or maybe using language or names and stuff. And so we'll be like, hey, please don't. That's against our terms. Please don't do that. We'll kind of give warnings to those people. So we do that sort of level. If people are spamming, like advertising their services, that kind of thing, it happens every now and then. We'll weed them out. So that's kind of the level of moderation we do at this point.
Well, awesome. I love that it's kind of a free commerce marketplace, but also too that the bottom line is kind of the safety and protection of both sides of the market. So that's really awesome. So for those of you who have never been on Morph Market before, I don't know what's wrong with my speech today. It is unique from some of the other websites or forums or groups in that it is very advanced technologically, and it's also very sleek and clutter-free. So I am interested in knowing how you've been able to do this successfully and to grow and keep expanding without having big old hideous ads like buy me everywhere, just kind of overwhelming people's senses as soon as they go on the website. How have you been able to do that?
Well, not having banner ads was just a business decision, I guess, from early on. We've never wanted to do that. I don't have any intentions of putting banner ads. I mean, it is an easy way to get thousands of dollars a month of income, but it comes at a cost, right? And the cost is that clutter, that an experience that people don't want. So, you know, we've chosen other ways to monetize and get the site supported, funded through seller memberships, and that's worked really well. It's in general, as far as developing the user interface. Yeah, sometimes it's. I mean, I'm not in love with every page in the site. They're not all just the way I would want them, but we do always think about complexity and what's the simplest way to expose some new feature or interface. I don't know how a specific answer to that, but other than we consider that to be important. We try to make the site develop it like mobile first, make it mobile friendly, mobile first development, meaning on any page we add, we're thinking first about what it looks like on a device, because that's the way most of our, especially our buyers, 80 or 90% of the users are using their phones. So that's It's got to look good there. That's why we don't have a native apps. We don't have an iPhone and a Android apps. You know, number one, because they're incredibly expensive to build. They're completely different sets of software that we would have to maintain. And they do provide some functionality, but at a huge cost. And the cost would be, it would slow down our development of the site. Every time we add a feature, we got to add it in 3 softwares in 3 different languages. So it'd be very burdensome. So instead, our website is a mobile web app, web application. So it's designed to be friendly on your tablet, your mobile phone, or whatever. And the neat thing is that there's, as technology develops, there's a whole area called progressive web app, which is a movement or a development in technology where to give websites the same kind of functionality that you would expect a native device to have. For example, to be able to be really functional offline, or to be able to install it to your home screen, or to be able to those sort of things. There's 4 or 5 kind of key features, and so we can build those kind of functions into our site as those technologies develop and they get kind of prioritized on our list. We can almost do everything that you could do with a native app. Yeah, that's kind of the philosophy behind why we have chosen that route.
Well, it sounds like you were the perfect guy to build this website. So it was so exciting meeting you. So my team, one member of my team and I, actually 3 members of my team and I, but there were only 2 there at the time. We went to the NARBC in Arlington, which is where my producer met you. I think I was interviewing Justin Kabelka at the time. Well, I'm not sure. Anyway, we had gotten separated, and he is the one that got to visit with you. And he was so excited to talk to you because he and I had been having an issue with isolating, searching for single gene ball pythons. And we had, like I said, we are not very tech savvy. You'd think as YouTube creators that we are, We're not. We totally learn as we go. And obviously, our specialty is pretty much, caring for animals.
Mhm.
So once you explained to him how to do that, it was like, I don't know, our eyes opened. And I don't want to give the impression at all that the website is not user friendly, because it was definitely user error. I mean, it was total common sense. But for those of you for those out there who are like me, um, you can search anything, but you'll get a lot of, let's say on ball pythons, you'll
Mhm.
get a lot of ads and a lot of information. Can you please explain to the people who need a little more explanation like me how to search for a single gene ball python?
Yeah. So, and that's just true about the site. I mean, you're not don't people shouldn't feel bad. Number one, because we always want to make it simpler, right? So it's sort of on us to make it simpler and more obvious in how to use. But there is a lot of depth. There's a lot of functionality there, and so there's some depth. We hope that the experience people have is that when they first come to the site and they're not familiar with it, even though they don't know how to do everything, they still have a good experience. And then as they spend time there, they become kind of realize that there's more functionality there. They can make use of it progressively. But in order to do this kind of search you're referring to, you want to do. There's a search. So it depends if you're on your phone or on desktop. It looks a little different, but you want to get to the advanced search. And usually on the mobile phone, that looks like a little magnifying glass with a plus inside of it.
Uh-huh.
I believe that's what it looks like on the desktop. In the desktop, you have a search bar. You can type in words like gene names, or it should, if it detects a gene name, then it will redirect your search to a certain species. So it'll scope it. If say sunset is only a gene for ball pythons, then it would know that you're looking at ball pythons. So it
Okay.
shows that's right. But it also will say, oh, or did you mean leopard geckos? Because if it was like a sun glow or something,
Right.
Anyway, the point is on your mobile phone, yeah, there's a plus, a magnifying glass with a plus. You click that, and then you get a form that allows you to define your advanced search. And in your case, you're wanting to, so it says like, I want to find, any, it starts out generic. And so it's like any sex, any age, of
Right.
any style, right? But you can narrow those down. So in your case, you want to change it says from with 0 to 9 traits, including, and so you can change the 0 to 9 to be from one, it's basically a minimum maximum, from one trait at a minimum to one trait at maximum. So that would restrict to ads that just have one trait listed, and then you can put in a keyword or pick the trait you want, like pastel or whatever it would be.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very simple. I definitely should have figured that out.
On the seller side of things, I was going to say, as far as listing ads, one thing that is a distinctive of Morph Market that most people probably don't know because most people aren't selling is that we also try to make it really easy for the sellers as well to the breeders to list their ads.
Let's talk about that.
So we have a functionality. You can create a single ad at a time the way you would on those sites, but because many breeders keep track of their inventory in a price list, which might be in an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets, or it might be even a notepad or something. Breeders can take that inventory and import it into the site, and it automatically creates ads from that price list. So you can create 100 ads in a matter of seconds using that process. There's some different ways you can do that. To make that simpler, we published about 15 minutes of YouTube videos, which are in our seller's guide. So if you're a new seller, or you're not a new seller, or you want to learn how to use the site more effectively, you should definitely go to the seller, go to your menu and seller's guide, and then there's about, I don't know, less than 10 videos, short videos there that talk about how to go through that whole process of preparing your price list and importing it and all that.
Amazing. That's really an amazing service that you offer. So speaking of services, let's talk about how much it costs a buyer to buy from you guys. Is there a user fee? And also for sellers, basically, how much do they have to give up to you guys? Let's talk about that.
So our site is free to the buyers, and the way that we get support is through the sellers, and the way that sellers can support us is through memberships. Now, for every species, we allow sellers to post some ads for free. So even in ball pythons, we classify the categories into mature markets and developing markets. And
Okay.
today, really only ball pythons has been deemed to be a mature marketplace. So in a mature marketplace in ball pythons, you can post, I think it's 3 ads for free. And then if you want to post more than 3 ads at one time, then you jump up to you need to jump into the first level of the paid membership. And there are 3 levels: basic, standard, and premium. And they offer, you can go on our site to in fact, on the front page, there's a button, a green button for membership, and it'll show you the pricing, the different plans, and then what all the features are associated with that plan. So the higher levels allow you to post more ads, and they also give you more features that kind of give your store more visibility. But, common thing, we have a store directory, for example, from the front page, and in that store, people use that to find, they know the name of, find somebody's store page. For example, you can, if you're in a mature marketplace, then being in that directory is a premium is a membership feature, right? So that'd be a reason for you to jump into the first tier. We encourage memberships to be purchased on an annual basis. So if the way you buy a basic membership, which comes out to $10 a month if you buy a year's worth, the standard is $25 a month, and then the premium is $35 a month. Paid wow. It's a 50% discount off the price if you go month to month. Okay.
Amazing. I mean, that's really
10, 25. We try to tailor the site. If you're just selling, I mean, honestly, you mentioned earlier about different places to sell, I wouldn't discourage someone from selling on Craigslist if they wanted to, if they had a normal ball python, they just want to rehome it locally.
Right.
Craigslist is probably the best thing for them, or something like that. Because they don't probably want to take the time to learn how to ship an animal properly. There's a lot of overhead in figuring all that out. So Craigslist is fine. But if you're going to sell a couple of animals, maybe you've got a collection, you just want to sell a few of them here and there, then just use the free plan. If you don't need the other features.
Right.
But then we have at least in ball pythons, we have in other areas too. We have sellers who are full-time professionals, right? And they're gonna it's right for them. We have a lot of these days. We have a lot, even though we don't. The main difference there's some of those features are given away for free in the developing areas, but not all of them. But we have a lot of sellers who breed things besides ball pythons, so they're in the non-developing area. They could list as many animals as they want. Well, there's a limit, like 100, 200 ads for free, but they want to support the site. They want to have some of the premium features, and so they'll buy membership anyway.
Okay. Fantastic. So, where do you, as the creator, aspire for Morph Market to be in, say, 3 to 5 years from now?
That's a good question. I mean, it was something. This isn't forward-looking. This is backward-looking. But the major thing that we've just added to the site, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, is ratings, and that's something we've been thinking about for years. It's a really complicated. It's complicated to do well. Our system was inspired by eBay's feedback system, so it's a 2-way system where both you can leave feedback about the seller, but they can leave some feedback about the buyer too. We've just got that rolled out. I'm still adding features to that system. That's kind of where my focus and thought is right now. As I mentioned earlier, we want to make this, we're always looking for ways to make the site easier to use. So kind of help system type things. The list is so long. Adding more species to the site. 3 to 5 years is a long ways out. So I'm not sure. I mean, I could list some things I would love, I'd love for things to happen, but I can't say that I've nailed down the roadmap that far out. I think there's a lot of opportunity, as our sites becomes more popular, just to look for ways to improve the reptile industry. What we can do to help, which may be in the form of just education, or how you take care of the animals, or how do you Little things like how do you properly ship? We still don't have.
Oh, that'd be really important.
We partner with Ship Your Reptiles, and so we encourage people to use their services. There's other good services too. They have so much good information on their website, so we don't want to reinvent we're not going to reinvent that, but like maybe they have so much almost too much information. It's lengthy, but it's great. So maybe like a digest of that, their information, just to try to avoid some. Occasionally there's there's an accident because someone ships and the weather's bad, or they don't ship properly and the animal dies. So stuff we can do to help there. So I don't know what all that looks like, but definitely want to look for ways to help the industry.
Well, maybe if you're looking for someone to do how-to videos to post links to your account, maybe I could help you out with that.
That sounds great.
Awesome.
It's a lot of work. I did, this 15-minute video, a lot of hours.
It does take so much time to produce media content. It's crazy. So tell me what you're keeping and what your dream animal is.
Good question. So I'm a little embarrassed because right now we don't have any reptiles.
Okay.
I'm not embarrassed, but I feel bad because but the reason for that, and we had, as I mentioned, in this room, I had it full of reptiles a few years ago. With the business taking off and having a family, having 3 kids, just had to prioritize. And
right.
So that meant putting the live animals on hold for a while. But I've always, I really would like to get back into it as a collector, probably not a reader.
Yeah.
And I would love to have, a handful of ball python morphs that I feel like have a good variety of appearance. When I have friends over and stuff, I can really show them how neat and much diversity there is. I'd love to have a carpet python, maybe a blood python, maybe something that's a little more medium sized, like a boa constrictor. I would love to have kind of a variety of species and with really nice terrarium setups. But
ooh, nice.
I hear that's all a lot of time. So right now it's a dream.
So essentially, you've given up your personal collection so you can better serve all of us. Wow. I feel terrible. No, I'm just kidding. No, obviously you're sacrificing a lot of time with your personal life, your family, and your entire reptile collection in order to grow this business and to dedicate to the service. That's really amazing. I know that Brian Barczyk, some people have criticized him because, I don't know, he's not spending his days and nights taking care of animals so much these days. He's filming. And, say what you want about Brian. I have a lot of respect for him because although there are people in the reptile world that may have grudges against him or, he did this or he did that or we're not best friends anymore, he is bringing education and awareness to the general public. I don't want to compare him to Steve Irwin, but Steve Irwin reached a wider audience than people who were already just really in love with alligators and crocs or really already loved snakes. Brian is reaching a wider audience with snake bites and the programs that he's doing that are getting out there to people who otherwise might not be actually searching this stuff. And so I want to thank Brian for that. And you for what you're doing. That's really incredible that you are so dedicated to this cause of growing Morph Market, ultimately for the greater good for all of us. It's like some kid sees a ball python at Petco and it has kind of a funny pattern, so he might go on to Morph Market to see, like if one of the little employees says, oh, that looks like it might be a pastel or that might be a yellow belly. Maybe he'll go on Morph Market and start looking and, see what there is out there. And it just opens your eyes when it's all out there together. And that is, it's an incredible service. It's an incredible idea. Obviously would have been logical for somebody to do this before, but the fact that you had developed a passion for reptiles and then you had the knowledge and the experience to be able to create it technologically. That's really an awesome marriage. And so, wow, you're kind of like Superman.
Well, I would totally agree with your comments on Brian, and also grateful for what he does for the reptile community. I think he's done tremendous value in the videos, you know, and all the things he's produced. So I'm grateful to have been able to, you know, have had a positive impact, and it just, I guess, comes down to using what you've been given, you know, and finding the right way to leverage that and help.
Exactly. So, you know, when I think about what you're doing, I think back to kingsnake.com or Fauna Classifieds. Those were some of the old marketplaces. And so I was wondering if you ever used those or examined those or spoke with any of those people to kind of get started. You know, sadly, those websites have not really kept up with the times. And ultimately, it makes your website superior to theirs. Yours is cleaner. It's more user-friendly. It's not posted with ads everywhere. And so it seems to me, are kind of still using technology from the 90s. And sadly, what it's created is a very small niche of people that are still going back there and utilizing it, to where it seems like you are bringing in new, younger people, a whole different group of consumers, which of course is good for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I think that people coming in, especially younger people, you know, probably don't have a lot of tolerance for those older websites. I mean, and that was my experience too. I mean, I used them to some degree, you know, I had listed an ad or two on KingSnake before just to kind of see how it works and to try to use it. And I think more than anything, early on, I was just learning how the community worked, like what's out there, how's it work, and seeing not necessarily how they were solving the problems, but like what are the needs, like what, for example, when sellers like list their stuff. I mean, one of the key distinctives between our site and those sites is ours is all custom, but by being custom, it allows, instead of it being a forum where people are posting messages, which include their usually price lists, right? So there's a lot of ads in one thing, one item. Well, you can't really do search over that because it's not one thing. It's like maybe 100 things in one listing, right?
Right.
So now, I mean, that's just one of many, I guess, limitations on those kind of sites. So, you know, but by having our entire database structured around inventory, like where each ad is a kind of morph, that the kind of search. But there's a lot more to it also, like, you know, as far as we have at the heart of our site is an engine that understands the genes. It can parse. You can give it the trait, like a 3-gene combo name, and it knows how to break that into the genes and then search for those.
Yes.
So it's just a lot. It's just a lot of machinery, and it was really expensive to build. I mean, it's taken years to build it. So, especially if you're an owner, like, bless you.
Excuse me.
You know, if you are maybe you own a site like that, but you're not a programmer, it's extremely expensive to hire programmers to build these kind of things for you. So that's where having that ability myself has been, and being willing to take the risk. I mean, doing well now, but like there was a lot of years of work that went in before you know, it was I want to say 3 years before we ever even opened up for the premium plans.
Wow.
You know? So I'm glad it's worked out for everyone, and you know, but yeah, building a custom website like Morph Market. I've heard people say things years ago like, oh, like you could build Morph Market for $10,000, you know, for $5,000 or $10,000. Like you can barely build a static website with like for your home building company or something for $5,000. I mean, much less a custom site with all the machinery.
Interactive.
That parses, has all the language capabilities to parse these genes, and for searches to provide. That also allows us to have calculators, which we have for not all the species, but for a lot of them.
Right.
You know, when you can go and use for reticulate pythons, for example, We don't do that for some species where the genetics don't follow the kind of predictable patterns. We just keep a lot of that. Like crested geckos are kind of the gene. So many of the traits are polygenic, and we can't provide much value there, and we don't want to confuse things. But anyway, there's just a lot there, and it's been really expensive to build. Even the rating system, I mean, that is extremely complicated. And the thing is, for Amazon.com to roll a system out like that, it's one thing because they have, I mean, they're multi-billion-dollar company, and they have that amount of users and revenue to build that machinery. But when Morph Market's big in the reptile community, but the reptile community is not that big, so it's not to justify a team of engineers, and so it's just expensive to build these things. But we're really excited about the rating system, despite how hard it was to come by, because we think it was sort of like it's just a central functionality of a site like ours, right? And it just needed to happen. There are other good sites out there. I feel like our rating system is complementary to other things that are out there. There's like the FBI forum on Facebook, feedback for it's a board of inquiry type site on Facebook called FBI. And there's of course some fun classifieds, the FBI. These are good. These are useful resources. But the rating system, we think, on our site will be beneficial because it's a little more streamlined and it's right there. So when you're researching your sellers, you've just got that. You've got ratings right there to look at, with like more digestible feedback, I guess. Shorter messages. The forums can get really long, right? Lengthy pages and pages and pages of people producing evidence and other people chiming in. It can be a real mess. Right. A lot of value in it too, though, because the community will they'll kind of cross-examine the people involved in those situations. What we do with our rating system is we allow you can leave a rating and you can leave some comments, but you can link to either of those forums where there's a lengthier discussion about what happened in those two situations. So we see our resources as complementary to those, which will suffice most of the time, but every now and then you have a really complicated situation and you can kind of like duke it out over there with your photos and the screenshots of text chains and all that stuff.
Wow. Yeah, like you said, because we're not buying a package of anything. When you're dealing with animals, it is very complicated. It is so complicated. It's funny because I have a friend who is a veteran breeder. He bought an animal from another veteran breeder and it wouldn't eat. It was just, I wouldn't say it was wasting away because it was at a really good body weight, but he went for a long time having to assist. It was a ball python, assist feed, and somebody found out about it. It got through the grapevine. He had said something to a friend they had in common. It got back to the seller. The seller contacted the guy and said, "Why didn't you ever tell me? I'll just swap you snakes. I never had problems with it, but I'm confident it's a healthy snake." Sent him that snake back. Sent him another snake to substitute it. It wouldn't eat. I don't know what it was, but there's the differences in climate and barometric pressure and humidity, all kinds of stuff that sometimes something weird happens that's nobody's fault. Nobody's fault. And so both of them really knew what they were doing, and so neither one really complained. It kind of turned out to be a funny story in the end. But sometimes there's a good explanation for what's occurred, or I don't know, it's more complicated. Somebody truly had an emergency and that explains why, whatever happened. And so it's neat that people can learn about buyers without kind of getting the long anecdotal version. On the other hand, if there is ever a need for that long blow by blow, that's provided. So, wow, that's kind of like the best of both worlds, definitely, I would say.
It can get really involved, that's for sure. And we know that because we've been dealing with these disputes for years now. I mean, for 3 or 4 years now, and getting into those, and you have to ask questions and try to find out what happened. But that's a really labor intensive process, and it's best done by the community. If people really want to get in the weeds or take the gloves off or whatever you want to say, however you want to describe it, like they need to do so in public, and where other people who are familiar with these kind of situations can ask questions and point to things. And but it's great. I think the majority of sellers are great and are ready to take care of people, but they all have different profiles in their business, right? In terms of what level of care and service they're going to give. And I think that's what a rating system is good for too, to kind of bring some of that out. Like, so you kind of know, okay, I'm getting maybe a better price and a high quality animal, but I can't expect this particular breeder to like really hold my hand and exchange 50 messages back and forth about how to take care of it. But some breeders are able to really give some of that post-sale support, and they want to be known for that, right? And maybe you're gonna pay a little more there, but people of course, it's human nature. They want to come in and they want to spend the minimum. They want to search sort by minimum price, and then that's the one I'm gonna buy. But they're especially with live animals, there's so many factors involved.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to just get the cheapest animal, and or if you do, you want to know what you're giving up, right? You're paying in some other way. So
definitely. So maybe me being female, or I don't know, I'm very invested. Every business decision I make, I think, because we don't have unlimited funds, unlimited time. I feel like we're always so pressed for time, and whatever resources we have, you have to really, even our time, everybody has the same amount of time. It's precious to me. You have to think carefully about where it's going to be spent. I'm curious to know, and if you don't want to share this, it's perfectly okay, but you kind of had this dream, you kind of had this vision, and it was an amazing one. Was it hard to get your wife on board? And you guys have kids, so it's not just you and she, it's your family, that you came to her one day and you said, I have this really cool idea. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money, and I think it'll pay off. What were her thoughts and feelings about it? And I know that she's had to give your children too, give up a lot of your time and energy. And obviously by this time, I would imagine she could see like, wow, like this was incredible and it's going to keep growing. And it was an excellent idea. It's going to pay off. But, and also, what ages are your kids? Has it been a challenge? How has she felt about it?
Yeah, good question. So I would say there were challenges in the earlier years, and some of that was around the live animal keeping too. And I think like all of us, we there have a tendency to care about what other people think, and like in our neighborhood, what any reptile lover knows, like if you bring up snake in a conversation, you're not likely to get, the odds are you're not going to get a positive response, right? So you learn that pretty quick, that talking about snakes maybe is not the best way to make friends. But that's because people just don't know, right? They're not educated. They're afraid of them. They don't understand that like ball pythons are cute and cuddly, and like other species are very tame and friendly. And so anyway, there's that lack of education again, but people have that innate fear. So I think that with her, some of the conflict we had was around was caused by perception of people in our neighborhood, or what they may or may not think about us in terms of having animals, or in terms of the business also. But she stuck with me, and we worked through that. And I think that we had conversations. We involved our friends and community support and all that. Not like it was a major thing, but like we just use it as a way of life. We involve other people in our kind of like our family and marriage and decisions and stuff. So I think that having a lot of communication about that, expectations, some of that would go. There have been years where I put a lot more hours in the morph market, like lots of hours, and that was a decision we made together strategically. We felt like at that time it had to be that way, and then there's been seasons of less. So we just have to work as a family and find the right balance for us. But yeah, these days she's pretty positive and supportive of it. So our kids are. I have a stepson who's 19.
Okay.
And I have a and then I have a 9-year-old son, and then biological son, and then a 7-year-old biological daughter, and then we're actually right at the very early stages of trying to adopt from China.
Wow.
A 6-year-old girl with special needs too. So that's something that's brand new in the last few months, and it's kind of a big thing.
So I don't know why he keeps coming up. I think Justin Kabelka has a couple of. I think he has 5 kids, and I think 2 or 3 of them are foreign-born adopted children. Which, when I found that about him, I thought that was so amazing. And wow, so I mean, this is like not exactly about Morph Market, but so what inspired that? An international adoption.
Yeah, well, and Justin is definitely. I mean, everyone knows Justin's a super nice guy. Besides being very successful in a leader industry, right? But yeah, I actually I met him for the first time face to face in Arlington a few months ago, with the show you were at as well, and I got to ask him about, because I had heard him mention that before at some point, maybe in the phone or something, and so I actually specifically asked him about their adoptions, and they have done multiple adoptions from China of older children. So I'm incredibly impressed by that and inspired, and I'll probably have future conversations with him about that too. But as far as what led us to that, I guess there's a long answer. The short answer would be that we feel incredibly blessed, and God has resourced us with so much, not just through Morph Market, but just generally in our life. And we just feel like we have capacity within our home for a place for somebody, and it's lower on our list would be having another kid, just having our family be a little bit bigger, but genuinely, like the higher motivations, or the primary motivations are because we just feel like we have space, and we think we can do some good, and there's a kid out there that needs a home, and we don't expect it's going to be easy. I mean, we're so early in the process, but expect it to be really hard, honestly, to bring a kid in that's had years of trauma, from being in an orphanage and foster homes and who knows what. So that's honestly scary, what that's going to look like, and just as a step of faith, I guess, and just doing what we feel like God wants us to do.
Wow, that's incredible. Oh, I hope to keep up to date with you on what's going on with that. That's really amazing. Wow.
Yeah, check back. It's all words right now. It's like the rubber's gonna hit the road, or the rubber's gonna meet the road. Maybe a year. It'll be a long process. Maybe a year and a half from now. And so talk to us in 2 years, and we'll give you the reality of it. But
so, is there a specific child that you guys are? I don't know. Have kind of honed in on. You said like a 6-year-old with special needs.
Yeah, that's kind of the profile. Just because of the ages of our younger kids, right? We already parented the age gap between having a 9-year age gap, and that's just really hard to have to meet the needs of very different kids in very different life stages. So we think we're gonna it's scarier to adopt an older kid, but there's a greater need for it too, and we feel like it's better fit for our family. So
do you know what language that child speaks, or would?
Right. So and the reason, people might wonder, why not adopt domestically? And because, like, hey, you're in the United States, and like there's kids here too, and that's totally true. And 3 years ago, we were going to go down that route, and then some other things came up in our life, and we had to put it on pause. But the U.S. doesn't have as many orphans, and most of them are in the fostering system with the hope of reunifying them with their family, if their family can kind of get things straightened out. So because our kids are already older, we're in a little bit more of a rush to go ahead and bring a kid into our family, and that's where we think there's a little bit more of a well-defined process to go to China for that, even though it is expensive versus domestic. If someone didn't have as many resources, then domestic could be better because they'll actually pay you and help you, pay for the cost for that child. But as far as, we don't have a specific kid picked out. We're, again, very early. We're getting our home study done where they make sure we're kind of fit parents, and There was a girl, though, what helped us is we're processing whether to do this or not. There was a girl that we saw that, it's one thing to think about it in theory, and then it's another thing to see a photo and a video and see an actual little girl, who she had like hand deformities and feet deformities. And my wife and I were just like, that's really scary, but like, we think we could do that. We think we could do that, so that, while there's not a specific kid in mind, like we've seen kids that we think maybe we could adopt, we could be willing to be able to be a family with them. Well, thanks for asking about it.
Incredible. Oh, so do you know what language that child would speak, and would you try to learn that language? Because Asian languages are pretty complex.
For sure, especially for an old brain like mine. It's like
you're so young.
Complex language. The way that I understand it works is even a 6-year-old, you bring them over and then they're speaking English within a few months. They're I don't know if fluent's the right word, but they're really good within a year. I mean, you can put them right into school, and I guess kids' brains just work that way. They can adapt and pick it up. So I think that in terms of learning, we will want to learn about their culture more so that we can be supportive of that. And they're going to have this child will have a previous life. They're going to remember their previous life, right. And so we don't want to take that away from them. And we'll maybe try to make relationships with people in our community that we can, they can be like a mentor to them. And
that's a cool idea.
But yeah, I guess they would speak Mandarin most likely.
Okay.
And I think it's really hard. So we can learn a few phrases maybe, but I don't know how productive it'll be.
Amazing. Well, that really touches me because my ethnicity is Mexican, Chinese, Native American, Spanish, but I was separated from my biological family at a pretty young age and just reunited with them a few years ago. And so, I don't know, I've been kind of culturally confused my whole life and was alone for part of my childhood.
Mm.
And so the fact that you and your wife and your kids are even considering doing this. Also, one of my cousins adopted a baby from Honduras, and that child has had a wonderful life with my biological family in California. And I mean, I'm sure it's going to be incredibly challenging. And also to encourage you, my master's degree is in special education. I work as an educator, and I'm trained in bilingual ed and cultural studies, and full language immersion is incredibly powerful. And so I would definitely encourage you to learn about the culture and learn, some basic phrases and stuff like that. But I think in a happy, healthy, loving environment, that child would absolutely become fluent pretty quickly. I mean, it's incredible what the young, elastic human mind can do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Incredible.
You're so much cooler than I thought you were. I mean, I thought you were cool before, and now I know you're like super duper cool. Mind blown.
We'll talk to us in a few years and see if our
you're gonna be like balding and like crazy, like, what was I thinking?
Right. We haven't done much yet other than paperwork.
No, I mean, you've had incredible accomplishments. Wow, you're awesome. What are your kids' names, just out of curiosity?
So my oldest son is Alex, and then my next son is Caleb, and my daughter is Claire.
Oh, Caleb with a C or a K?
A C.
Okay. So, I'm on a new quest to name every one of my reptiles. Mm. So, I'll do a video soon where one is named Alex, one is named Caleb, and one is named Claire. So, you'll have to watch out for that.
Oh, they'll love that.
If you weren't watching my channel before, you have to now. Yeah. Wow, that's so amazing. I'm like wanting to just kind of meditate on that for a minute, but that will bore people. So we'll move on. I was wondering if you had considered ever starting like a dry goods or a snake supply, like even like snake handling tools like tongs and things like that, maybe affiliated with Morph Market, or I don't know, a department for stuff like that? Has that been considered?
Definitely, yeah. In the list of, you could call it expansions, right? Which isn't maybe adding functionality to or the goals the site or the uses the site already has, but to add more to it, then that's definitely on the list. Both in terms of caging and supplies, tools and feeders too, or food or whatever. I think that those are all very relevant ads to be on the site. So I would love to have it there. It's definitely something we'd like to do.
Cool.
And we get requests for it too. I think especially feeders because all of those things, but I know from personal experience, like wherever wherever you're at, like getting feeders can be hard. And so just like, on our site, you can, a lot, what people typically are often purchasing domestically, so it could be any state, but you can actually go, if you go to stores, not everyone probably knows, if you go to stores, and then you can click on Morph Map. And if you click on Morph Map, you'll see a Google map with overlays where the actual breeders are. And so you can zoom into your area and see, like in Dallas, you could see there's 15 or 20 breeders and exactly where they said they are. So I think that anyway, the point is that I think especially with getting feeders, that's something people will probably do locally and not unless you're getting frozen. So it benefits you to be able to see in your metroplex, your area, like who's out there that's breeding rodents or whatever, crickets or whatever.
That's a very cool idea, because especially for the noob coming in, that they're going to, have to learn this whole other world, then to go, oh, so do I order rodents from the first rodent company I can find that's in, New York, and I live in San Francisco, or I don't know. That'd be a really cool resource. So are you saying that's something you're thinking about, or something that you already have?
That is something here. I'm actually. Can you see my sharing my screen?
Sure can.
Since I just mentioned this, yeah. If you go from stores, you click on Morph Map. This is an example of a feature on our site that's not really very. I mean, there's so many things. I appreciate your compliment. There's so many things I want to make better. Like this isn't a very good, and this is really hidden in this functionality. But anyway, so look, here's the United States because Morph Market has a North America site, a Europe site, and a South Africa site too. Not everyone knows. Another kind of like subtle feature, if you click up here on the flag, you see that, then you can switch to a different region. But anyway, if you're in the U.S., really it's the North America region because it includes Canada as well. I don't know if we've ever had anybody from Mexico selling, but so yeah, if you were to zoom into Florida, you'd just be lost in all these.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So many, and see who's there. But yeah, that's what that what this looks like.
Very interesting.
So anyway, as far as stop my screen share. No, I would say it's more on the list. Like it's not something we've committed to doing. I've got to figure out how we'll do it, and so it's not scheduled. I guess I could say for this year.
Interesting. So I know that you had mentioned that you wanted to probably expand and maybe even do an invert section. Of course, I'd be pretty excited about that. It's the same thing with the invert world. You want to buy a tarantula or a scorpion or a centipede or whatever. It's like people ask me every single day, do you have this? And if I don't have that exact animal, I mean, I have a few really almost one breeder I refer them to, but if that one person doesn't have it, it's kind of like, okay, I'll wait until next year, or whenever people are reproducing that, the one person that is reproducing that again. So if you do expand, or maybe when you expand into inverts, that'll be crazy. And of course, inverts are an even smaller niche than reptiles. So obviously you may not be super duper motivated to do that right away, but that would be really, really cool.
I'll definitely lean on your expertise when I get there. Whenever we
please
do
do.
a new area, I always seek out, often people that have asked for it, if they're breeders, I'll follow,
Okay.
hey, we're going to do tortoises. Will you help me look at this list of species, categories, and subcategories that we've kind of put together? Is this right? Are we missing things?
Uh-huh.
I would definitely follow up with you and get your input on that process.
Awesome. Please do. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. I always kind of try to end with whatever you guys want to talk about. Like, is there something important about Morph Market that I haven't thought of that maybe people should know, or anything about you that you want people to know?
Probably covered enough about me as much as the listeners want to hear.
Oh, they do. They want to find out about the mysterious John Lehmann.
Probably the only thing I came on the show, maybe wanting to share about is something I've already mentioned a few times, just because that's what we've been working on, is the rating system. And so I think I've probably shared, we're excited about it. We feel like it's was a real missing piece of our site. It's a way that sellers can distinguish themselves. It's a way that buyers can get more confidence about, and more information about who they're selecting. It gives buyers a recourse if they have a bad experience or a neutral experience, or a good experience, to be able to go back and, post those details, and let buyers build reputation as well. Something that not everyone may know is, if you go and buy one animal, and that's and you're done, and that's one thing. But so many people go there, and then they want to add more, and the sellers take risk as well when these online, not because of Morph Market, but just anywhere online.
Exactly.
Facebook or whatever, like, there's risk on both sides when these transactions happen. Occasionally sellers lose money from the way that things go down.
Right.
And so our rating system is designed also to let buyers accumulate reputation, and that's beneficial to them because it means when they go and inquire on other items, they're going to be taken a little more seriously. They're going to be trusted a little bit more. Maybe the seller is going to ask less questions to try to vet, their experience or their trustworthiness and that kind of thing. So we're pretty excited about that. There's a lot more we can do with it than what's there even right now, but the framework's all in place.
So is the rating system already going, or is that something you're working on?
It's already going. So we launched it at the end of January publicly, and if you go on the site, you can see. Let me share my screen.
I like your deep thinking face.
Okay, so here's our site again in the desktop, and so yeah, we gave. Speaking of user interfaces, right? We finally, sorry, ball python lovers, ball pythons has been a top level link here for always, and we finally rolled it into the category. So now it's kind of in this regard, on par. Even though we're only showing ball pythons in this flash, like, that needs to be more diverse as well. But anyway, but we have limited real estate here, so ratings gets top level real estate. So you can click ratings, and this page is not. So it basically just, you can see some recent ratings that people have left, and you can read more about how to use it. And we have a very detailed help guide about the ratings, because while we want to make it easy to use, there's a lot of complexity involved, and especially if you're a seller, you want to understand things like how the process works, if there's problems, how you resolve that. We've got a growing list of FAQ, questions and answers, about certain things, questions people are asking. For example, right now we limit your ability to, you can only leave a rating on an inquiry that's up to 90 days old.
Okay.
We don't want somebody to have an animal for a year and then it dies and then they want to go back and leave.
Right.
Negative rating about that. It's better that while it's fresh in the mind of the buyer and seller, they kind of document that transaction and move on from there. So, but there's complexity there too. Like, what if it's the winter and you inquire and now the animal's on hold for a few months? Like, we don't handle that yet. So it's possible there's some small percentage of transactions that don't become eligible for ratings because it just takes too long.
Okay.
But you can read all about it. There's a little screenshot of Pavelka's his rating page.
Wow.
Ours that stars for different specific categories, and then you have the comments that people left, and some kind of the trend over time. But yeah, it's brand new. It's just out, but it's so new that I haven't even. I mean, on our top level, I mean, I announced it on our blog, but I have not. You know, one of the other things I'll do to promote it will be to talk about it here, and then like on and like other media outlets, and then like to email all of our user base. Periodically, we send out emails to let our users know kind of what's new and stuff. So I haven't even. It's new. It's so new. I haven't even like fully announced it yet, I guess you could say.
Until today.
Until today.
Awesome. So, is the rating system only available to consumers of Morph Market? So, like, if somebody went to their website and had a good experience, can they be like, "Oh, I'm going to go on their Morph Market account and leave a good rating," or "I didn't like them when I met them at the show, so I'm going to go put a bad rating on their Morph Market account"?
Great question. Yeah, that's one of the dozens of design decisions we made when we made the system, and we chose to limit the scope of the rating system to transactions that happen on Morph Market on the website through the inquiry system. So that means even if you go to the site, you go to your favorite breeders page, and then you like contact them on Facebook and purchase, and maybe it was sort of like you use Morph Market, but you didn't like do the business through Morph Market, at least the inquiry, then that's not eligible for a rating. Now that being said, and we do that for obvious. The main reason we do that is because it's hard enough. So our job is to make sure that the ratings are authentic, right?
Right.
We want sellers creating fake ratings about themselves, or fake negative ratings, like buyers creating fake negative ratings, right? We want to protect the reputation of sellers and buyers too. So that's a really hard problem. That's a hard problem for all the big sites, the billion-dollar sites, right? So it's a hard problem for us, but we have some ways that we handle that, and but that's one of the reasons why we limit it. You got to at least send an inquiry through our site, because if otherwise we have nothing to go by to like validate that true transaction. So that being said, like if you want to go back, if you do buy, if a user buys on Facebook and they want to go back and inquire on that ad if it's still listed, you know, you could kind of like retroactively do that. That's not against the rules either.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, no, that seems to make the best sense, because I know there are a lot of people who would generate a lot of false positive ratings. I don't know, people are weird. Like they want to get a famous seller's attention or brownie points for something or other, or somebody who gets a weird taste in their mouth and wants to, oh, well, now I don't like that guy, or I'm going to give them a bad rating, you know, and
exactly. That's the reason why, that's part of the reason why building a system like this is so hard. And we know that we want the information we provide to be true, and we want to protect the reputation of sellers, and so we've put great care and thought. It doesn't mean that it won't ever be a mistake, but I feel pretty good about the system we put together. And if somebody wants to get permanently banned off Morph Market, that's a really good way to create some fake reviews for yourself, and we're likely to catch that, and then they won't be coming back. So
I was going to ask if there was ever a circumstance. Obviously, if you have a scammer, someone who's scamming people, I would imagine that their accounts get banned. But are there any other circumstances? So obviously creating false ratings for themselves might be grounds for a seller being banned off of Morph Market.
Yeah, we would have zero tolerance for that. There's things, you know, we try to, I want to publish, I want to document that just kind of like the process, and like be more open about, especially kind of dispute process, like if this happens, this is what we would do and all that, so that we don't have to answer those questions each time. But yeah, fake ratings would definitely be a way to get banned. And there have been other circumstances, you know, I mean, they kind of fall in the scam category. Like one time, I'll say on occasion, we have become aware that an animal was sold and it was advertised with a different set of genes than what it actually had. And I mean that in a very deceptive way. We don't, generally speaking, the market is a free market, right? And we're not policing like the genes, the way people tag there. We'll ask them to fix it and stuff, but that's not, as long as we don't think they're being deceptive, then we're not overly concerned about it, and buyers really do the research and know what they're getting. But there's been an instance or two where we found out someone sold something that was het for something, and then that was reported to us somehow, and that we were able to, like, I mean, we really have to prove it because we don't want to wrongfully accuse and convict somebody, but judge them. But like where we talked to the person who sold that animal to this individual, the seller in question, and they're like, yeah, that's not het for that. That's totally made up. And so we know they lied about it. And so they'll try to create more accounts, and they can't get access. So it's we draw the line there for sure. We feel like that kind of a person. We don't want them. There's lots of sellers, and we don't want that kind of a person selling to our buyers.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I can't say enough other than everybody who is watching now and going to watch this video. Definitely go to morphmarket.com. Whether you buy animals or not, a lot of people love to window shop. I know people who like to spend their Sunday going to the store, kind of looking around the store. That's what you can do at Morph Market. Maybe you might see an animal. Well, I heard an interview from Brittany Gobble, if you know who that is. And she's also relatively new to ball pythons and really making waves because she was a cat breeder. She does Lycois and Savannahs, which Lycois are a domestic. I don't know if they're totally hairless or if they're partially hairless, but they're a high-end cat. And the Savannah cats are a domestic serval hybrid, which are awesome. I want one day. And so Brittany, I don't know the story exactly of how it came about, but she basically saw a crazy beautiful ball python, and she was like, snakes, all colors of the rainbow. That's really crazy. So anyway, she basically bought a couple really top dollar ball pythons and just started breeding them right away, and now is making waves in the market. But there are beautiful, incredible animals out there that are fun to look at, for one, and second of all, once you start kind of looking around, you might discover that maybe owning a snake or two is something that previously non-reptile keepers might be interested in. So yeah, I encourage everybody who's listening, everybody who's going to watch, go to morphmarket.com, check it out, look around, play with the features. People who are breeding snakes, it's practically free to use. It is free, but even if you're a big time seller, your rates, even for your premium account, if you're doing business, it's almost free you're providing a huge service, and it's awesome. It's so amazing. I can't believe that a good website like this hadn't come along earlier, but I think it just needed to be the perfect marriage of someone who was technologically innovative enough and basically saw the need in the reptile world. So, wow, you are kind of my hero, John. Kind of my hero. So I want to thank your wife and Alex and Caleb and Claire for giving you up for the afternoon for me. You're awesome. It was so exciting. So by the time I came back around where you were speaking with the other member of my team, you were already gone. So I hadn't gotten to meet you until today. And so thank you so much. It was amazing meeting you. And yeah, I think we should do like a follow-up episode at some point, maybe in 6 months or so, to kind of see how things are going, what's changing on Morph Market.
That sounds great. Well, this was a lot of fun, Marita. Thanks so much for having me on. It's great to get to know you as well, and to know you through your questions. Great questions. And your time and encouragements too.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank the viewers who are here. I'm seeing that a couple people are saying that they love Morph Market. David W is saying he spends hours on Morph Market. I've done the same thing. It's so neat just to look around and see all the incredible, beautiful animals. So thank you to the people who were here, Chris Stogden and Silly Snakes and Bob Biker and a couple of other people who have been kind of here listening to us live. And for those of you watching after, so John, if people have questions, what's the best way to contact you or the other people of Morph Market?
So yeah, so if you go to our site, then you can click on either at the bottom of the page, basically you can, in the About menu or at the very bottom of the page, you can click Contact Us.
Uh-huh.
And from there, it'll pop a form up and it'll send an email. So basically through email to our site.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, and that's actually how I was able to get in contact with you. And I immediately got a message back that was kind of a computer-generated message assuring me that, yes, we got your message, we'll be with you soon. And then very shortly after that, you were in contact with me. So I can vouch that great service. I know that my friends who have sites on your website love it. And like I said, I'm preparing ads right now, and my account was approved. So check out my page on Morph Market coming very soon. Yeah, you're incredible. I loved visiting with you, and let's talk again soon.
That sounds great.
All right, you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and let's keep in touch. Have a good day.